morning. It's 11 o'clock on Thursday, and that means it's time to do often silly movement things with me. So today we're going to talk about breathing, and we're going to talk about a few different variations on breathing. So we'll look at breathing for calm and settling. And for more information on that and what actually made me decide to do breathing today was a fantastic interview with Dr. Andrew Huberman, and I'll post the link to that below. And he talks about a few different things, but that includes breathing strategies for both calming and energizing yourself. We're going to talk about the Pilates breathing process. There's a specific breathing pattern we use in Pilates, and I have a particular image that I really like for mindful breathing, which I really love. And then we're going to do the fun one-sided root breathing game, because I think that's a great little focus for your brain, and it moves your obliques and it challenges your connection to your diaphragm. And it's just kind of fun. And it's the only time you will ever see me in a crop top on a video. So, we'll hold on for that exciting bit. But let's start with just breathing for settling. So you can be sitting, you can lie down, you can be wherever you want to be most comfortable. But how many times have you been a bit anxious or stressed and someone said, oh, just take a deep breath? Or how often have you said that to someone else? Actually, in terms of our neurology, in terms of our physiology, a big inhale is actually a really upregulating, energizing, alerting process. And when you want to settle, what you really want to do is take a deep exhale. So just wherever you are, don't force yourself to take a big breath in. Just breathe in with no particular stress to it. And then breathe out long and slow, deep in that exhale. You can do it through your mouth, you can do it through your nose, but really get a sense that you have fully emptied your lungs. And then just let your breath inhale again. Let your body sort of inflate. And then again, relaxing your neck and shoulders, fully empty your lungs. And this is a super simple, you can do it anywhere. You don't need any tools, you don't need anything expensive. When you're feeling a little bit jittery or agitated or stressed, you can focus on your exhale rather than forcing yourself to take a big inhale, which might actually make you feel worse rather than better. If you're a movement teacher, whether you're a Pilates teacher or a yoga teacher, whoever you are, remember that how we breathe has an effect on our students and our clients, and that if you notice there's somebody in your class who's seeming a little bit more stressy than usual, maybe avoid in that moment cueing big inhales and just focus on the exhale, or just allow people to breathe however they are. We don't always have to be adding a breath pattern to our movement. Sometimes it's really helpful for clients to just breathe without having to add that extra layer of thought process. Let your movement and your breath travel naturally and spontaneously. It's a totally valid thing to do in a class, and sometimes people just love it to not have to think about a breathing pattern. That said, in Pilates, there is a specific breathing pattern. Joseph Pilates he was asthmatic, and part of his breathing pattern was developed in an attempt to kind of regulate his own breathing, and then realized that the way he was breathing was activating his core musculature, his abdominal muscles, his pelvic floor, his diaphragm. Everything was kind of going along for the ride. So if you're familiar with the Pilates breathing pattern, this is not going to be anything new, so you can just use it as a way to stimulate your breath today. And again, you can be lying down, you can be sitting up, you can be, you can be standing on your head. I'm not fussed about where you are. So you're going to breathe in. You can put your hand on your chest. You're going to breathe in through your nose. And part of the reason you want to have your hand on your chest is you don't want a whole ton of movement happening here. So we're going to experiment with that. So you're going to breathe in and then just let it go, and fully let it go. Let all the air out. And then move your hands to the sides of your ribs. And if this position with one hand on each side of your ribs isn't comfortable for your shoulders, you could wrap around and do your hands on the opposite sides of your ribs. That would work too. And this time, as you breathe in through your nose, you're going to try and really expand your breath into the sides of your ribs and the back of your ribs. And again, just breathe out. We're not doing anything special with the breath out just yet. Just make sure that you fully exhale. So if you prefer to breathe through your nose, go for that. If you like to breathe through your mouth, do that. Right now, just focus on this idea of when you breathe in, can you make the bulk of the expansion of your ribs can you make the expansion of your ribs be the bulk of the movement that's coming from your breath, rather than what sometimes happens, which is the bulk of the movement is coming up in here. So there are lots of different modalities where you're going to find a focus on this rib breathing technique, lots in yoga, restorative exercise, lots of breathing practices, but it happens to be part of the Pilates program. So now we're going to add a very specific exhale. So you inhale through your nose, you find that sense of widening into the back and sides of your ribs, and now blow out as though you were blowing through a straw. And you keep exhaling until there's no air left. And then you inhale into the back and sides of your ribs. So that process of providing a little bit of resistance to your exhale with your pursed lips, and they don't need to be super tight. It's kind of it's a biggish straw. It's like a milkshake straw, not a little tiny one. It creates this resistance, which fires up more of your core muscles. So when you're doing exercise, when you're actually loading your system, starting that exhale just before you move cues your core muscles to start working before you add the load. So if you start your leg first and then exhale, it's going to be largely a leg exercise for most people. If you start the breath first and get your all of your core muscles is kind of a dodgy term these days because most people associate it with just your six-pack, but your core muscles are all of your abdominal muscles, your back muscles, your deep back muscles, your diaphragm, your pelvic floor. It's this whole entire torso, right? So if you start the breath first, you can just pull your knee in towards your chest, start the exhale through your mouth with this little bit of resistance, and then add the weight of your leg extending, you might find that that's a really good way of increasing the abdominal work, right? So if you're one of those people who, when you do ab work, you're like, meh, I never feel it. I don't feel my core firing. I don't feel my abdominals working. See if changing your exhale to start just before you do the movement, and obviously this works better if it's a fairly slow, not super complicated coordination choreography, but for basic ab work, timing your exhale just a little bit before you do the, arm reaching or the roll up or whatever it is that you're doing might make your abdominal work a little bit more satisfying. So that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I have a like a mindful image breathing practice that I really love. So again, just get yourself wherever you're comfy. And I call this the tree of life breath. So imagine a tree, and the roots are going deep down towards your pelvis, and they're wide, and they cover the whole inside of your body. And then you have this strong trunk, and then you have the top of the tree, and you have branches, big branches, leading out to smaller branches, leading out to little twigs, leading out to leaves, and that the upper part of the tree is covering filling the inside of your body. And again, you can be lying down, you can be sitting, you can be wherever you want. The goal with this is to not stress your inhale. So if you can imagine your breath, and this is opposite to the way actual breathing works. So when you actually breathe in physiologically, you inhale, your lungs get bigger, your diaphragm slides down, hopefully the sort of the canister of your belly releases, your pelvic floor slides down. The pelvic floor and the diaphragm, and then the contained part of your abdominal cavity is is coming down to respond to the change in pressure created by the enlarging of your lungs to make space for the air, right? As you exhale, your lungs get smaller, there's a change in pressure, your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, and your core canister, they lift, right? So it's inhale down, exhale up, which is a bit counterintuitive for a lot of people. This image is going the other way. So just be clear that the image that I'm suggesting is not actually physiologically what's happening. So as you inhale, you want to imagine the breath floating, sliding, easing up from the roots through the trunk all the way out in as far into the twigs and the leaves as your body will easily and naturally do. So we're not trying to put effort into this inhale, it's just allowing the breath. And then once you get ready for your exhale, again, you can go through your nose or through your mouth, whichever you prefer, whatever's more comfortable for you. It can be interesting to experiment with doing this through your nose rather than through your mouth, especially if you tend to have a big Pilates practice and you're used to the idea of breathing through, exhaling through your mouth. Exhaling through your nose is important. So you just let the air slide back down from the leaves and the little twigs through the bigger twigs, through the branches, through the trunk, and to the roots. And you can just ease through this breath a few times, and I find it really calming and really settling. And I'll include a link to a little video from YouTube. I'll include the link below that just takes you through the process if you wanted to have a guide through a bit of a breathing meditation. And then the part that you've all been waiting for is the one-sided rib breathing. And I just think this is a blast. And as I said, this is the only time you'll see me take my top off because it's easier to see if I'm not wearing a shirt, but then I will put the shirt back on. So unilateral rib breathing. The goal is to open one side of your ribs at a time. So again, this is probably easier to do lying down, but I'll show it to you sitting up because you can't see me if I lie down. So the goal is to breathe into one side of your rib cage. And it's helpful to have your hands there. I'm going to move my hands so you can see. So you breathe in and breathe out. Other side. So you could do a bunch in a row on the same side. Or you could alternate side to side. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now let's talk through how to do it. So get yourself somewhere comfy. Ideally a place where you can use your hands to feel your ribs. And then we're gonna look at two different ways of doing this. The first way is more about the breath. The second way is more about the bones. So initially, lie yourself down, get yourself comfy, or stay sitting, whatever's happy for you. Place your hands around your ribs so that you can feel the sides of your ribs. And then breathe so that you imagine your lungs. And you're going to imagine your lungs like balloons, and you're going to try and breathe in through your nose only into one balloon. And then empty that balloon and go to the other side, other balloon. The balloons can be different colors if that helps your brain. And then empty the balloon. And usually you get more, your lungs are different sizes because of your heart, and your diaphragm is different from side to side. So it's not, and we have movement patterns. There's a whole bunch of stuff that means this is likely to be different from one side to the other. So don't worry about that if it's not the same. And just see if you can encourage one side to move and the other one to stay still. It's a great focusing exercise. I find this is another good kind of anti-stress thing. If your brain is doing the hamster wheel thing and you can't get your brain to stop buzzing, focusing on trying to move one side of your body at a time, trying to breathe into one lung at a time, not really what's happening, is a great way to focus your mind so that it's a little bit less distracted. So that might be one strategy. For some people, it's less about inflating from the inside and it's more about creating the space. So this time, think instead about your muscles and your bones, your ribs, your serratus anterior, your inter and extracostals, muscles that line the side of your rib cage. Now, instead of worrying about the breathing, think about opening the ribs on that side and see if as you inhale, does that just pull the breath into that side and then let it go. And then same thing other side. Really picture that side of your rib cage. Picture all the muscles wrapping and surrounding your ribs, and then see if you can pull that side of your rib cage open as you breathe, and does that slide the breath in? So you can play with that also as a strategy. And then a way to support that would be to only breathe through one nostril. So if you're going to focus on this as your opening side, then plug the other nostril. You can kind of come up through the bottom of your nostril rather than squeezing the side, if that feels better to you. And then inhale through your nose, using whichever strategy works better for you, right? Either thinking about inflating from the inside and pressing your ribs open, or thinking about the muscles in the ribs opening and that pulling the air into that side, and then let it go. And then try the other side and let it go. I have a PDF download. I will include the link for that also in the comments below. So does anybody have any questions as we're here, as we wrap up for the day? I don't see any questions. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it's useful to know. I mean, it's kind of a stressful time these days. Here in Toronto, we've gone back into lockdown or partial lockdown. So, if you're feeling a little agitated, knowing that having a calm breath, not fussing so much about big breaths or deep breaths, thinking more about easing into your exhale as a settling mechanism might be helpful, useful to do anytime, anywhere. That you maybe have a mindful movement, mindful breathing practice that might be helpful. And then you have a lovely distracting game of breathing into one side or the other of your ribs to help your brain have something to do. And then a little strategy to enhance your core work when you're in your Pilates or your yoga or your restorative exercise class. So thanks for joining me. And the replay will be up shortly. If you have any questions, pop them into the comments and I'll be coming back to answer questions and to post in those extra resources. See you next week. Bye.